Hello, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin. I'm the author of 12 published books, including Twin Flame Union, the 7 keys to a healthy twin flame journey, and Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. You can find all of my published books on Amazon and Ingram Spark. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I teach meditation online on demand. You can start that at the link below or get a free sneak peek into a universal mantra. Welcome to this series. I am going to entitle this For Twin Flames. However, it also applies to you if you have a lover and the topic applies to you. So my topic is, must you help them, meaning your twin flame or your lover? This topic came to me because several times in the past few months in readings and coaching sessions, one-on-one sessions with my clients, this topic has come up so many times that I figured it's best to do a video on this specific topic. And that is, must you help him or must you help them? Usually it's the dynamic of the woman wanting to help the man, whether that man is their twin flame or their soulmate or their lover. And the reason why I presented the 2 books is because there's a lot of crossover to that. Now, we all know that it's part of humanity and human kindness to want to help others. However, when we are in a romantic relationship with another adult, meaning we are in a relationship with someone who, for all intents and purposes, is independent, they have their own will and desire, they have their own autonomy. And when we're in a relationship with these people, helping can sometimes cross over into enabling. So I'm not going to use that term enabling in this video so much as to help you understand when it is okay to help and when you might want to not help. This has a lot to do with boundary setting. It has a lot to do with recognizing someone's free will choices and recognizing someone's innate autonomy. And I say that because usually when you have been enmeshed in a codependent connection, whether that person is an alcoholic, a drug addict, or has some sort of addiction, or they are in a space, a mental space where they are not operating at 100% due to a mental illness, due to something else that is going on. And oftentimes what I see is the person who comes to me for help in a reading and coaching session really trying to get validation for helping their lover, their soulmate, or their twin flame. And it's almost as if they are trying to justify the reasons why they are helping the other person. Again, it is very loving to help another person. However, a relationship must be a dynamic of give and take. It must be a dynamic of interdependence, which means that sometimes you need help with something, such as if you get a flat tire. And sometimes your partner might need something, such as picking up something from the dry cleaners, for example. And I'm using these as very trivial examples just to demonstrate to you how in an interdependent relationship, how we help each other, right? So one day when it's your partner's turn to pick up the kids, if they can't because they're stuck at work, then you go pick up the kids. But then 2 days later, you might be stuck at work and you need your partner to go pick up the kids. So that is really the law of giving and receiving. It is a dynamic exchange, and it is part and parcel of an interdependent relationship that is healthy and strong. Usually what I see when I'm doing coaching sessions with my clients is something that is not so healthy. Why? Because it tends to be very one-sided. And that's going to be the first thing that I'm going to outline here. It tends to be more or less one-sided. And what does that mean? It means that it always seems that the client in question who is coming for help is always helping their twin flame soulmate or lover. It's like they're always having to correct something that has gone wrong, bail them out with money, giving them advice, or something else to help them become a functional human being. Because as an independent, functional human being, we should be able to do these things for ourselves, right? We should be able to pay our own bills. We should be able to achieve our tasks and goals that are happening on the day-to-day. And when it comes to the point at which a romantic partner is so disabled from doing those normal things that the other one steps in, and not only steps in, but oversteps. And then the dynamic becomes really, really unhealthy. And oftentimes the person who's doing this does not recognize it. Now, one of the reasons I brought up the book, Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, is because I was in that role with an alcoholic boyfriend for five and a half years, I think it was. And I thought it was my job to get him sober. I thought it was my job to educate him. I thought it was my job to help him when he had drank too much, whether it was driving him somewhere, driving him to the grocery store, or getting him into bed if he passed out. So I took on the extra burden of something that he should have been doing for himself. And then I took it on. And of course, that made the relationship dysfunctional. Oftentimes, the person who is operating at helping too much, or helping when the other person with their full autonomy is supposed to help themselves, oftentimes they are the last ones to know. They are the last ones to recognize it. It's not only in the instances of addiction that I've heard this time and time again, which I have heard it there too, where my partner smokes too much weed, or they are drinking too much, or they're becoming argumentative, or I feel bad because they're in this state. And so I'm extra nice to them, or I help them out even more. I might help them with the housework, or help them with the kids, or help them, even though they're not your kids, right? So I might help them because I understand that maybe they have a problem, but they probably don't have a problem, but they just get this way. So the person in question is always making excuses for their partner. So that's one part. The other part is someone who is helping out with a partner who may be limited by their mental functions, but not disabled. So for example, some other excuses that I've heard is like, oh, my partner has ADHD and they can't do X, Y, or Z. They have a hard time getting organized. Or my partner is on the autistic spectrum, and so they're really, really super intelligent, but I have to help them with the basic life things because they're not able to do those things, and so on and so on. So as soon as you help your partner out where they should be helping themselves, or finding a way in which they can help themselves, and you're overstepping that boundary, you are becoming that person who is trying to take over their life. Now, secondarily, there's so many reasons why this is not a good thing to do. The second reason is because you become like their higher being, right? You are trying to become their higher power. I always say this is like the Jesus complex or the God complex. And I say that respectfully, but it's almost like you think that there's no way that they can help themselves. And so it's your job to help them. So you become like their savior. You become like their Jesus or like their God. And so you try to make the decisions as to what is best for them. You try to help them find a job or find the money, or you try to provide for them in the way of, well, they couldn't pay their rent this month, but these are all the excuses why they couldn't pay their rent, but I'm sure they'll be able to do it next month. But I had to do this for them because if I didn't do it, no one would do it and they would be left out on the streets. So do you understand how it's like, I'm trying to be their savior. I am trying to be God for them. So that is another sign that it has gone really wrong. And that is when the helping in a normal relationship has crossed over into a dysfunctional helping. Okay, the third reason is because of the power dynamic that happens when you overhelp. How does this work? When you help your partner who is supposed to be able to help themselves, you become the superior power in the relationship dynamic. So you become here and they're down here. And then it becomes even more dysfunctional when you throw it in their face. So remember, I paid your rent last month and now you're doing the same things you're doing again and you're not going to be able to pay the rent this month. You're not going to work. You're getting up late. You're drinking too much. You're drugging. You're so disorganized and you're really not doing the things you're supposed to be doing day in and day out. You're calling sick out of work when you're not really sick. And so on and so on and so on. So the problem with that power dynamic shifting is multifaceted. What this means is that you not only become their mother or their father, if you're a guy, you become a parental figure when they didn't even ask for it, right? They didn't ask for a parental figure, but all of a sudden now you're a parental figure. So you're trying to lay down the law, tell them how it is, show them how much you've done for them. That's the first power dynamic that is dysfunctional as you become the parent. And then the second power dynamic dysfunction is that you have exacerbated the role of trying to control their life. They have free will. They have full functioning free will that God, source, spirit, the universe never took away from them. But now you're taking away their free will because you're making the decisions for their life. You are making the decision if it's right or wrong that they drink. You are making the decision if it's right or wrong that they take the drugs. You're making the decision if it's right or wrong that they don't pay their rent, for example. Even that, right? It's in their free will choice to make the decision not to pay their bills. And although it might be bad for them, they need to feel the consequences of not doing the things that they need to do for their normal life to function. What happens as a result of that is there is a lot of resentment on both sides of things. There's a lot of resentment. There's resentment that you are feeling because you were just trying to help. And there is resentment that they are feeling because you're taking away their free will. And so there's a lot of resentment that happens as a result of the power dynamic being shifted. Not to mention that that shift in power dynamic also ruins the romantic part of the relationship, if this is a romantic relationship, which this video is about. But it ruins it because who wants to be romantic with their mother or father, right? And that is the role you're taking on. Or even if you're taking on that God role, if you're taking on the role of Jesus or their savior, it kind of goes along those same lines. It puts you in a position of superiority over them. And then you can do all kinds of things like trying to manipulate them or manipulate their actions or the outcome of those actions. And oftentimes it starts out with wanting to do good. It starts out with wanting to help and wanting to extend that bit of human kindness. But what it becomes is something so much darker than that. It becomes you crossing over the road from your life path into their life path, and then you are calling the shots for their life. And that isn't fair. That's not fair to them, and it's not fair to you. Now let's dig into why this happens. Why would we feel the need to help or overhelp our twin flame, our soulmate, or our lover in a romantic partnership? Why would we want to do this? There are so many reasons why we would want to do this, and most of them stem from a lack of self-love and lack of self-respect and self-worth. Because if you love yourself, if you respect yourself, if you have great self-worth, you are never going to cross that line into helping someone who is supposed to be helping themselves, because you're not going to put up with that, because it's too draining on you. It's draining on your energy, your resources, your time. It takes away from the time you would spend doing your own work. It takes away from the time you would spend taking care of yourself in healthy ways. It takes away oftentimes from your monetary resources. And I know for me, it did all three of those things, if not more. So we do this because we have low self-esteem. And we feel like if we can have the upper hand on somebody else in their life when we're in a romantic partnership, that they won't leave us. Because the biggest fear we have when we have low self-esteem is that the other person will leave us because we don't deserve to be in a romantic relationship. And so we find someone, we sniff them out, we find someone who is inferior to us in so many ways, meaning like they have more problems than we have. And we sniff them out because then we can be in the superior role. And I know it sounds crazy, but this is absolutely the truth. We have this superior role over them, and so then if we have so much over them and we're doing so much for their lives, then they won't leave us. But the dysfunctional person, the person who doesn't want to take responsibility for their lives through dysfunction, like I said, it could be a multitude of reasons. They also sniff you out. They recognize the person who is going to help them and take care of them. They recognize it on a very subconscious level. So let's suppose your partner is an alcoholic, as an example. They are used to sniffing out people who are very caring, who are caretakers, who go above and beyond, and who like the role of caretaker because they know innately that there are many times in their day, in their week, in their month where they can't take care of themselves. And so they're going to sniff out that person and fall desperately in love with them and show all of their love and affection toward them because they need them, right? But again, there is this sense of dysfunction in the relationship, which brings about a lot of resentment. And that's why you often see anger and violence, whether it's violent words, deeds, or actions, right? In a dysfunctional relationship where one person is helping the other way too much. Now, let's go back to the twin flame journey and the twin flame connection, because that's another overhelping. A lot of times the divine feminine in this connection will kind of get on their high horse. And believe me, I'm 4 fingers are pointed back at me. Like, I was so guilty of this. The divine feminine will get on their high horse and be like, oh, I'm so much more spiritually awakened than my divine masculine, which they usually are. But I need to help them understand. I need to help them to understand the twin flame journey. I need to help them understand the spiritual journey. I need to help them by educating them. And I need to help them because they're not able to see things right. And then the divine feminine way oversteps the boundaries into starting to micromanage their divine masculine's life, trying to overpower their divine masculine's life, to tell them what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be behaving, and how they're supposed to think about the future of the twin flame relationship, because we're supposed to help the greater good. And so that is equally damaging. So whether it's with a dysfunctional relationship that has nothing to do with a twin flame, or it's a dysfunctional relationship that has everything to do with a twin flame, or some crossover between those, between lovers, soulmates, twin flames, and the dysfunction that comes with that sometimes, overhelping is not helping. Overhelping is not helping. You must not help your person when they are an autonomous adult. And even if they have autism, even if they're on the spectrum, even if they have ADHD, even if they have a drug addiction, a porn addiction, a whatever addiction, even if they have a mental health issue, you are still not their savior. You are still not their doctor. You are still not their mother or father. You are their lover, and that's it, right? That is it. You're supposed to be their friend, their lover, and friends help friends do things that can be return in equal exchange, right? That's usually what it is. That's a healthy way of looking at things. And it's not like you're doing to get back, but a healthy relationship has those equal exchanges, even if it might seem one-sided for one or two times, but then the favor is always returned in like kind. But it's never about overpowering the other person, taking away their free will, trying to get into a position of superiority where you're telling them what to do or micromanaging their life in any way, shape, or form, giving them money that they're supposed to earn for themselves, for the living that they need to do for themselves as a functional adult. Because if they're not functional, they need to be in a group home with therapists that are actually helping them through things, right? They need to be in an environment where they're being taken care of, but not by you, by the mental health facilities or by family that decides that maybe they do need to live with the parents for a while they're going through therapy or rehab or a 12-step group or something like that. But as their lover, you are not responsible to be doing that. And when you take back your power and you start to walk on your unique path without crossing over into their path and trying to take over their life, you'll find that you feel so much more peaceful. You have a lot more inner peace. You have a lot more your sense of empowerment, and you will have more time to take a look at yourself and understand within you the reasons why you have decided in romantic relationships why you need to overhelp. And that is a crucial point that you really need to explore the way I explored it too. I spent a few years exploring this one. And it's really important that you spend some time exploring that, because the unhappiness that comes with a dysfunctional relationship based on one person giving too much and the other person taking too much is that your future relationships will all repeat themselves. It'll be a same pattern that's going to repeat itself time and time again until you get to the bottom of, why am I doing this? Why do I have such low self-esteem? Why do I have such low self-worth? Why do I feel I need to take care of my romantic partner in ways that they're supposed to be taking care of themselves? Why do I feel that's necessary? Now, another danger in this type of relationship is the over-helping in the romantic relationship with a partner who is dysfunctional, is that it hurts your other relationships. And that should be a big red flag for you. Even the relationships with your children, it's going to hurt those relationships, because usually the person who is overhelping becomes so laser focused on the person they're helping that all the other relationships around them start to crumble to the ground. And again, it's that need to feel needed. It's that need to feel on top of things so that you don't get left behind. And so you'll see if that is the case, if you've been overhelping in your relationship with your twin flame, soulmate, or lover, that the other relationships in your life are tending to be very stressed and they might be crumbling and things are not working because your focus is too much on that other person, not enough on your life. So I hope this was helpful for you to be able to discern, am I helping too much? Have I gone over into somebody else's lane? Am I taking over their life, their free will choice? Has the power dynamic changed? Have I become their savior? Have I become their mother or father? If so, you now know how to course correct. I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. Thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this with other twin flames, soulmates, or people in a romantic relationship that you have an idea might be dysfunctional. Thank you so much for your support of my YouTube channel. You can pick up one of my 12 published books. You can join me at my website where I have courses and resources for you for free. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.